The massive alien ship hung in space like a dark metal moon. Inside the command center, Commander Velthar studied the blue planet below. His 4 eyes moved across the screen, showing data about the third planet from this yellow star. The readings made no sense. "Commander," said his second officer, Kexron, "the atmospheric readings are confirmed. This planet should be dead." Velthar's chitinous armor clicked as he shifted. His species, the Vorthak, had conquered 17 star systems. They knew what made planets suitable for life. This world called Earth broke every rule. "Show me the surface conditions again," Velthar ordered. The screens filled with numbers that made the alien warriors uncomfortable. Gravity that would crush most species. An atmosphere with deadly oxygen levels. Weather systems that could tear apart buildings. Massive bodies of salt water that covered most of the planet. Volcanic activity. Earthquakes. Storms that spun with the force of small wars. And yet, Kexron said quietly, "They live here. The humans." That was what they called themselves. For 3 months, the Vorthak had been watching Earth. They had intercepted radio signals and studied the strange creatures that lived on this death world. The humans looked weak. No natural armor, no claws or fangs, no thick hide or protective shells. They seemed soft and fragile, but they were everywhere on the planet. Velthar had seen the images. Humans living in frozen wastelands where the temperature would kill a Vorthak in minutes. Humans in burning deserts. Humans on high mountains where the air was too thin to breathe. Humans in cities built on fault lines where the ground shook regularly. "Sir," another officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the planet's surface." The main screen flickered. A human face appeared. The creature had only 2 eyes, smooth skin, and hair growing from the top of its head. It looked directly at the camera and spoke in clear galactic standard language. "This is Daeho Kim of the Earth Defense Council. We know you're up there. We've been tracking your ship for weeks." The bridge fell silent. No one had detected their ship before. The Vorthak used the most advanced stealth technology in known space. Daeho continued, "We would like to invite you to make formal contact. Our scientists are excited to meet you." Velthar gestured for the communication officer to open a channel. "I am Commander Velthar of the Vorthak Empire. How did you detect our vessel?" The human smiled. It was an expression that showed teeth. Among most species, showing teeth was a threat display, but humans seemed to do it when they were pleased. "We have good eyes," Daeho said simply, "and we're used to watching the sky for dangerous things." This intrigued Velthar. The human spoke of danger as if it was normal. What kind of dangerous things? Storms, meteors, solar flares, flying predators, the usual stuff. The usual stuff. Velthar exchanged looks with his officers. These were things that would end civilizations on most worlds. "We would be interested in cultural exchange," Daeho continued. "Perhaps you would like to observe some of our activities, learn about our way of life." Velthar thought about this. The Galactic Council had sent them to evaluate whether humans were ready for contact. So far, the species seemed primitive. They used chemical rockets to barely escape their planet's gravity. Their weapons were crude projectile throwers and explosive devices. They had not even unified their world under a single government. "What activities would you show us?" Velthar asked. "Well, tomorrow we're planning a hunt, traditional style. You could observe and learn about human customs. A hunt." This was exactly what Velthar needed to see. Every species had to hunt for food at some point in their development. Studying hunting methods would show him how dangerous humans really were. "We accept," Velthar said. "Where should we meet?" "There's a mountain forest about an hour north of our capital. Beautiful area, lots of wildlife. We'll meet you at dawn." The transmission ended. Velthar turned to his tactical officer. "Prepare a full combat analysis team. I want to see these humans hunt." "What do you think we'll observe, Commander?" Kexron asked. Velthar studied the data about human technology again. "Probably some kind of projectile weapon demonstration, maybe primitive traps. Their military might use it as a chance to show off their capabilities." The truth was, Velthar was not impressed by human weapons. He had seen their chemical explosives and metal projectiles. His armor could stop their strongest bullets. Their missiles were too slow to hit Vorthak ships. If it came to war, the humans would lose quickly. But there was something about the way the human had spoken that bothered him. Deho had been calm, not afraid or excited to meet aliens, just calm, like meeting beings from another star system was a normal Tuesday. "Sir," the communications officer reported, "we're receiving detailed coordinates and safety protocols from the humans." "Safety protocols?" "Yes, sir. They're asking about our environmental needs, atmospheric requirements, temperature preferences. They want to make sure we're comfortable." This was unusual. Most species either feared the Vorthak or tried to impress them. But the humans were treating them like guests. "They're also asking about our hunting traditions," the officer continued. "They want to know if we have any cultural taboos they should be aware of." Velthar's mandibles clicked in thought. The humans were being polite, professional. It reminded him of how experienced soldiers behaved. Calm under pressure, thinking ahead, considering all variables. "Send our atmospheric requirements," he ordered. "Tell them we look forward to observing their hunting methods." As the crew prepared for the next day's mission, Velthar stared at the planet below. Something was different about these humans. They lived on a world that should have killed them. They spoke of danger like it was normal. They detected stealth ships and treated alien contact like a routine meeting. Tomorrow, he would see how they hunted. That would tell him everything he needed to know about whether humanity was ready to join the wider galaxy, or whether they needed to be contained. The blue planet turned slowly below, showing no signs of the billions of Deathworlders living on its hostile surface. Soon Velthar would understand what made them survivors on a world that broke every rule of habitability. He just didn't realize that the hunt would change everything he thought he knew about predators. The morning air was cold and clean in the Korean mountains. Mist hung between the trees like ghostly curtains. Birds called to each other from hidden branches. It was the kind of morning that made humans feel alive. Dae-ho Kim stood in a small clearing, checking his equipment one last time. He wore simple clothes, sturdy pants, a warm jacket, and boots made for walking on rough ground. Next to him, Bo-Ram Lee adjusted her backpack and looked up at the sky. "They should be here soon," she said, her breath making small clouds in the cold air. Dae-ho nodded. He had served in special forces for 12 years before becoming a liaison officer. He had hunted in these mountains since he was a boy with his grandfather. Today felt like both and neither of those experiences. "Remember," he said to the small group of humans gathered around him, "we're showing them our traditional methods. Nothing fancy, just the way our ancestors did it." Taemin Cho knelt by a stream, filling his water bottle. He was the best tracker Dae-ho knew. The man could follow a deer trail that was 3 days old and tell you what the animal had been eating. "Should be good hunting today," he said quietly. "Saw boar signs yesterday about 2 kilometers north." Sun Woo-nam laughed softly. At 65, he was the oldest member of their group and had been hunting these mountains longer than anyone. "Young people always worry about the wrong things," he said to Dae-ho. "The aliens want to see how we hunt? We show them. Simple." Mi-young, Song finished setting up her camera equipment. As a wildlife photographer, she had spent countless hours in forests like this one. "I just hope they don't expect something violent," she said. "Real hunting isn't like the movies." A low humming sound filled the air. Everyone looked up to see a dark shape descending through the mist. The alien ship was smaller than expected, maybe the size of a large truck. It landed in the clearing with almost no sound, its metal surface gleaming despite the gray morning light. A section of the ship's hull slid open. The Vorthak emerged like something from a nightmare movie. "Commander." Velthar stepped out first, 8 feet tall, covered in natural armor that looked like black metal. His 4 eyes scanned the area while his mandibles clicked softly. Behind him came 6 more warriors, each carrying weapons that hummed with energy. The humans watched calmly as the aliens approached. No one reached for weapons. No one stepped back. They just waited. Velthar stopped a few meters away and studied the humans. They looked even more fragile up close, soft skin, no visible weapons. Their clothes looked like they were made for comfort, not combat. "I am Commander Velthar," he said in accented but clear Korean. "We are here to observe your hunting methods." Dae-ho stepped forward and bowed slightly, a gesture of respect, not submission. "Welcome to Earth, Commander. I'm Dae-ho Kim. These are my colleagues." He introduced each person. Bo-ram, the scientist who had studied alien biology from their intercepted transmissions. Taemin, the tracker. Sunwoo, the experienced hunter. Mi Young, the photographer who would document everything. Velthar looked around the clearing again. "Where are your vehicles, your weapons?" Dae-ho patted the small pack on his back. "Everything we need is here." "I don't understand. How do you plan to hunt without proper equipment?" Sunwoo chuckled and pointed to his feet. "Same way humans have always hunted. We walk until we find what we're looking for." The Vorthak warriors exchanged glances. Kexron, Velthar's second officer, activated a scanning device. "Commander, I'm not detecting any energy weapons, no vehicles in the area, no communication arrays." "That's because we don't need them," Taemin said simply. He knelt and touched the ground near the stream. "See this? Boar tracks, made yesterday, morning after the rain stopped." Velthar looked at the dirt. His enhanced vision could detect energy signatures and metal traces, but he saw nothing special about the muddy ground. "How can you tell when they were made?" "The edges are starting to dry, but the bottom is still soft," Taemin explained. "Rain stopped 18 hours ago. Tracks were made in soft mud, so maybe 6 hours after that, and look here." He pointed to some broken grass. They were moving north toward the high ridges. Bo-ram pulled out a small device, not a weapon, but a simple GPS unit and some basic sensing equipment. "Commander, may I ask about your hunting traditions? On your world, how do you catch prey?" Velthar considered the question. "We use energy nets deployed from aircraft, or orbital targeting, systems for larger game. Quick and efficient." "Ah," Sunwoo said, nodding. "No patience needed." "Patience? Hunting takes time," Mi-young explained, adjusting her camera settings. "Sometimes hours, sometimes days. You have to understand the animal, learn its habits, predict where it's going." The concept seemed to disturb the Vorthak warriors. Kexron spoke up. "Days? Why not simply use area weapons to eliminate all prey in a region?" The humans looked at each other. Dae-ho realized the aliens truly didn't understand. "Because that's not hunting," he said. "That's just killing. We're going after one specific boar. We'll track it, study it, and catch it." "Then what?" Velthar asked. "Then we'll see," Taemin said with a smile. "Depends on what we find." The Vorthak commander was becoming more confused. In every species he had encountered, hunting meant using superior firepower to eliminate threats or gather food. These humans spoke of hunting like it was some kind of puzzle to solve. "Perhaps we should begin," Dae-ho suggested. "You can observe our methods firsthand." He shouldered his pack and started walking toward the trees. The other humans followed, moving quietly, but not slowly. They seemed to know exactly where they were going. The Vorthak warriors looked at each other uncertainly. They had expected to see weapons demonstrations or tactical maneuvers. Instead, they were apparently going for a walk in the woods. Velthar activated his combat systems just in case. His armor could analyze threats, track movement, and coordinate with his team's weapons. Every piece of equipment was designed for quick, decisive victory. But as they followed the humans into the forest, something began to bother him. The humans moved differently than any species he had ever observed. They didn't scan for threats or check their equipment. They just walked. But their heads turned constantly, their eyes never stopped moving, and they seemed to notice everything. Taemin stopped suddenly and held up a hand. Everyone froze. The tracker knelt and examined something on the ground that Velthar couldn't see. After a moment, Taemin stood and pointed deeper into the woods. "They went that way," he said quietly. "About an hour ago." How could he possibly know that? Velthar's scanners showed nothing but trees and dirt. As they continued walking, the Vorthak commander began to realize that something was very wrong with his understanding of these humans. They weren't using any technology he could detect. But they were clearly following something through terrain that would challenge his warriors even with full equipment. The hunt had begun, and already, Velthar was starting to feel like the prey. The forest grew thicker as they moved deeper into the mountains. Ancient trees stretched their branches overhead, filtering the morning light into shifting patterns of gold and shadow. The humans moved through this maze like they had built it, themselves. Velthar tried to follow their path, but his heavy armor kept catching on branches that the humans slipped past easily. His tactical display showed their route as a chaotic zigzag with no apparent logic. Yet the humans never hesitated, never backtracked, never seemed lost. Tai Min stopped again and knelt beside a fallen log. He studied something for long moments, while the others waited patiently. The Vorthak warriors gathered around trying to see what had caught his attention. "Here," Tai Min said finally, holding up a few dark strands. "Boar rubbed against this log. See the bark scratches? And here." He pointed to marks in the wood that looked random to Velthar. "Height of the scratches tells us how big the animal is." Kexron activated his molecular scanner. The device could analyze matter down to the atomic level. After several seconds, it confirmed organic material from a large mammal. But how had the human detected it without any equipment? "Your eyes are very good," Kexron said. Sun Wu laughed. "Not just eyes, young alien. Nose, too." He breathed in deeply. "Boar has a strong smell. Musty, wild. Can smell it from 50 meters if the wind is right." Velthar tested his own sensors. His equipment could detect chemical traces in the air, but it showed nothing unusual. "I don't smell anything." "Different noses," Boram explained. "Humans evolved as hunters. Our senses developed to track prey across long distances." She pulled out a small tablet and showed them some basic information about human biology. "See? Our eyes face forward for depth perception. Our nose can detect thousands of different scents. Our ears can pinpoint sounds in 3 dimensions. The data made Velthar uncomfortable. The Vorthak had evolved as ambush predators on a stable world. They relied on overwhelming force, not subtle tracking. Their home planet had few large predators and abundant prey. Hunting had been easy, but Earth was different. Everything here seemed designed to kill anything that lived on it. How did weak creatures like humans survive? "This way," Tai Min said, pointing to a narrow path between the trees. They followed what looked like a random route through the forest. Sometimes Tai Min would stop to examine a broken twig. Sometimes he would touch the ground and nod. Sometimes he would just stand still and listen before choosing a direction. After an hour of walking, Velthar was completely lost. His navigation systems showed their position, but he had no idea how to get back to the clearing where they had started. The humans, however, seemed to know exactly where they were going. "How do you navigate without instruments?" he asked Deho. "Sun position, tree growth patterns, wind direction, stream sounds." Deho pointed to various features as he spoke. "This mountain has landmarks if you know how to read them." Mi Young paused to photograph something, a tree with unusual bark patterns. "Animals use these same landmarks," she explained. "They travel in predictable routes between food sources and water." The concept was alien to Velthar. His species used satellite navigation and computer mapping. The idea of reading the environment itself was beyond their experience. They came to a steep slope covered with loose rocks. The Vorthak warriors engaged their gravity compensators to climb easily, but the humans tackled the slope with nothing but their hands and feet. They picked their way up carefully, testing each handhold, moving with practiced ease. Halfway up, Tai Min found something that made him excited. "Fresh tracks," he called down to the others. "Very fresh." Velthar climbed up to see. In a patch of soft earth between 2 rocks, he could barely make out what might have been footprints. His scanners confirmed disturbed soil but couldn't tell him anything useful about what had made the marks. 2 hours old at most, Tai Min said confidently. "Large male, maybe 200 kilograms, moving toward the ridgeline." "How can you possibly know all that from marks in the dirt?" Kexron asked. Sun Wu joined them at the top of the slope. "Size of the print tells you weight. Depth tells you how fast it was moving. Age. He touched the edge of one track. Earth is still moist underneath. Rain ended 16 hours ago, so these were made recently. Boram added more context. Boar behavior is predictable. Morning feeding time, they move uphill toward root beds. This one is following an ancient trail that hundreds of boar have used for generations. The aliens were beginning to understand something disturbing. The humans weren't just following random clues. They were reading the forest like a book, understanding patterns that had existed for thousands of years. Your species, Velthar said slowly. You evolved doing this? For millions of years, Deho confirmed. Before tools, before fire, before language, humans tracked prey across continents. Our ancestors could follow herds for weeks, never losing the trail. The Vorthak commander felt something he rarely experienced: unease. His species had achieved interstellar travel through technology and overwhelming force. But these humans had achieved something different. They had become perfect pursuit predators. Look there, Mi-Young said quietly, pointing through the trees. Everyone turned to see movement in the distance. A large, dark shape was making its way through the underbrush about 500 meters away. The Boar. Velthar's tactical systems immediately began calculating firing solutions. Range, wind speed, target movement patterns. His weapons could eliminate the animal from this distance with perfect accuracy. But the humans did something unexpected. They settled down to watch. Now we learn, Sun Wu said softly. See how it moves, where it stops to feed, which way it prefers to travel? They observed the boar for 20 minutes. It was unaware of their presence, going about its normal routine. The humans pointed out details: how it tested the wind, how it chose its path, how it behaved when it felt safe versus when it was nervous. Why don't you attack now? Velthar asked. Because we're not ready, Tae-Min explained. Don't know the terrain ahead. Don't know if there are others nearby. Don't know which way it will run when it detects us. Detection? You're 500 meters away. Boar have excellent hearing and smell, Boram said. It will know we're here long before we can get close with a direct approach. The boar finished feeding and moved deeper into the forest. The humans packed up and followed, maintaining their distance. They weren't trying to catch the animal. They were studying it. As they continued the pursuit, Velthar began to realize something that chilled him to his core. The humans weren't hunting like any species he had ever encountered. They weren't trying to overpower their prey or ambush it or trap it. They were simply following it, patiently, persistently, learning its patterns and waiting for the right moment. It was the hunting method of a species that never gave up, never got tired, never stopped coming. For the first time since landing on Earth, Commander Velthar began to understand why this world had produced survivors instead of victims. The sun climbed higher as the pursuit continued through the mountain forest. The humans had been following the boar for 3 hours now, and Velthar was beginning to understand why his warriors were feeling disturbed. The humans never stopped, not to rest, not to eat, not to check equipment or consult maps. They just kept moving forward with the same steady pace they had started with. Their breathing remained calm and even. Their movement stayed smooth and controlled. Kexron had quietly activated his medical scanners to monitor the humans. Commander, he whispered, their heart rates are barely elevated, body temperature stable, no signs of fatigue. This was impossible. The Vorthak were wearing powered armor that assisted their movement, and even they were starting to feel the strain of the mountain terrain. But these soft, weak-looking humans were treating the difficult hike like a casual walk. The boar had become aware of their presence about an hour ago. Velthar could see the animal's behavior change through his scopes. It started moving faster, changing direction more often, stopping frequently to test the air with its snout. It knows we're following, he told Deho. Good, Deho replied, calmly. Now the real hunt begins. The humans didn't try to get closer to their prey. They didn't try to head it off or surround it. They just maintained their steady pursuit, staying about 300 meters behind the increasingly nervous boar. What worried Velthar was how the humans looked during this chase. They showed no excitement, no emotion at all. They just followed their target with the same expression they might wear while walking to work. On my world, he said to Boram, predators show aggression when hunting, anger, bloodlust. Your people seem calm. Boram nodded. Human persistence hunting is different from ambush predation. We don't need to be angry. We just need to be patient. But why doesn't the boar escape? It's faster than you. In short bursts, yes, Sun Wu explained. But we can maintain this pace for hours, days if necessary. The boar will run until it's exhausted, then we'll catch up while it rests. Days. The word hit Velthar like a physical blow. These humans could pursue prey for days without stopping. Your species, he said slowly. How long can you maintain pursuit? Depends on the individual, Taemin said. But trained hunters can track prey for a week or more without losing the trail. Kexron's scanner data confirmed something terrifying. The humans' body chemistry showed they were nowhere near their physical limits. They could indeed continue this pace for much longer. The terrain became more challenging as they climbed higher into the mountains. Rocky slopes, thick underbrush, stream crossings. The boar was working harder now, taking more risks to try to lose its pursuers. But the humans adapted to every obstacle. When they reached a steep cliff face, they found handholds that Velthar's equipment couldn't detect. When they crossed a fast-moving stream, they read the water flow like they had designed the riverbed themselves. Your people, Velthar asked Mi Young, what is the longest recorded pursuit? In ancient times? Stories tell of hunts that crossed entire continents, hunters following mammoth herds for months, waiting for the right moment to separate one animal from the group. Months. The Vorthak commander felt his mandibles clicking nervously. His species planned military campaigns that lasted months, but the idea of individual pursuit for that long was beyond their comprehension. The boar tried several tactics to escape. It doubled back on its own trail, forcing the humans to slow down and carefully work out which tracks were fresh. It waded through streams to break its scent trail. It climbed through areas so thick with thorns that following seemed impossible. The humans dealt with each challenge methodically. When the tracks became confusing, Taemin would study the ground until he found the true path. When the scent trail was broken, Sun Wu would circle the area until he picked it up again. When the terrain became impassable, they found alternate routes with the confidence of people who had mapped every inch of these mountains. This is not normal predator behavior, Kexron reported privately to Velthar. Pursuit predators in our database use short, intense chases. This is something else. What it was, Velthar was beginning to realize, was inevitability. The boar was now showing clear signs of exhaustion. Its movements were becoming erratic. It was making mistakes, leaving clearer trails, choosing easier paths instead of the most concealing ones. But the humans looked exactly the same as they had 4 hours ago. Calm, patient, unstoppable. Commander, one of his warriors said privately, request permission to return to the ship. Velthar was surprised. Why? This is disturbing, sir. The way they pursue without emotion, without tire. It's like watching death itself following. That animal. The comment made Velthar look at the humans with fresh eyes. They weren't acting like hunters. They were acting like a force of nature, patient as erosion, relentless as gravity, inevitable as time itself. How do you know when to stop? He asked Deho. When we're ready, came the simple reply. Ready for what? To make our choice. The boar burst from a thicket 50 meters ahead, running hard toward a rocky outcrop. It was panic now, no longer thinking clearly. The humans had been pursuing it for over 4 hours, and the animal's resistance was finally breaking. But instead of speeding up to catch their exhausted prey, the humans stopped. They stood quietly, in the forest, watching the boar disappear over the rocks. No disappointment, no frustration, no urgency to continue the chase. Why did you stop? Velthar demanded. You could have caught it. Sun Wu smiled. That disturbing human expression that showed teeth. Could have, yes, but didn't need to. I don't understand. The hunt isn't about catching, Deho explained. It's about proving we can catch. That boar now knows humans can follow it anywhere, track it through any terrain, pursue it until it has no strength left to run. Boram pulled out her recording equipment. We've documented the tracking methods, recorded the pursuit patterns, gathered all the data we needed. Mi Young showed them her photographs, hundreds of images documenting every stage of the hunt. This will help other researchers understand boar behavior in this region. Velthar stared at them in growing horror. You pursued that animal for 4 hours. Just to prove you could? And to study it, Taemin added. Learn its habits, map its territory, understand how it thinks. The Vorthak commander finally understood what he was witnessing. This wasn't hunting as his species knew it. This was something far more terrifying. It was the behavior of apex predators who were so confident in their abilities that they could choose mercy. The forest clearing where the boar had finally stopped was quiet except for the sound of heavy breathing. The animal stood 30 meters away, sides heaving, looking back at its pursuers with wild eyes. It was exhausted, cornered, and completely at their mercy. Velthar expected the humans to finish what they had started. Every predator species he knew would attack now when the prey was weakest. But the humans did something that shook him to his core. They sat down. Deho pulled out a water bottle and took a slow drink. Boram unpacked her scanner and began taking readings from a distance. Mi Young set up her camera for long-range shots. Taemin studied the area around the boar, noting the terrain and vegetation. What are you doing? Velthar asked. Observing, Sunwoo said simply. He pulled out a small notebook and began writing. Animal behavior under stress, habitat preferences, physical condition. The boar watched them nervously but didn't run. It was too tired. For the first time in its life, the animal had been chased to exhaustion by predators it couldn't escape. Heart rate elevated but stabilizing, Boram reported, reading her scanner. No signs of injury, good muscle development, healthy coat. This is a prime adult male. Mi Young's camera clicked softly as she documented everything. Stress responses are interesting. It's not showing aggression, just wariness. It knows it can't outrun us anymore. Kexron activated his own scanners to compare readings. The data matched what the human was reporting, but he didn't understand why they were collecting it. Are you studying it instead of killing it? Why, would we kill it? Taemin asked, genuinely confused. Because you hunted it, you chased it for hours. Yes, and we proved we could catch it. What more do we need? Velthar felt his worldview shifting. But hunting means killing, taking prey for food or territory. Does it? Deho asked. Or does hunting mean proving you're the better predator? The question hung in the air like smoke. The Vorthak warriors looked at each other uncertainly. In their culture, hunting was about dominance through destruction, show superiority by eliminating the competition. On Earth, Boram explained, humans are the apex predator not because we kill everything but because we can catch anything that runs. Sunwoo nodded toward the exhausted boar. That animal will never forget today. It will remember that humans can track it anywhere, follow it through any terrain, pursue it until it has no strength left. But it will also remember that we chose not to kill it. Why is that important? Kexron asked. Because mercy is the privilege of the apex predator, Mi Young said quietly. Only the strongest can afford to show weakness. The concept was alien to Velthar. Vorthak culture was built on the idea that strength meant using all available force. Show mercy and your enemies would think you were weak. But these humans had demonstrated something more disturbing than overwhelming force. They had shown perfect, patient, unstoppable pursuit. And then they had chosen not to use it. Your ancestors, Velthar said slowly. They did this same thing? For millions of years, Deho confirmed. Before we developed agriculture, humans were nomadic hunters. We followed herds across continents, taking only what we needed to survive. Always tracking, always pursuing, never losing the trail. Taemin added. And when you encountered other predators? We followed them too, Sunwoo said, with a slight smile. Until they understood who really owned the territory. The implications hit Velthar like orbital bombardment. Humans hadn't just survived on their death world, they had become the ultimate pursuit predators, patient enough to track prey for days, persistent enough to follow it across any terrain, and confident enough to show mercy when they chose. This is why your people spread across the planet. He said. It wasn't a question. Humans can live anywhere because we can hunt anywhere, Boram agreed. Desert, Arctic, jungle, mountain, doesn't matter. We adapt and we pursue. Mi-young finished her photography and began packing her equipment. The boar will be fine. It just needs to rest and recover. This chase didn't hurt it, just taught it. Something important. What did it learn? Velthar asked. That humans are apex predators, but also that we're not monsters. The group began preparing to leave. They packed their simple equipment, cleaned up their small camp, and prepared for the long walk back to their starting point. The boar watched them go with obvious relief. It was still alive, still healthy, but it had been marked by the experience. It now knew what real predators looked like. As they walked back through the forest, Velthar tried to process what he had witnessed. The humans moved with the same calm confidence they had shown all day. No celebration of victory. No disappointment at not making a kill. Just quiet satisfaction at a job well done. Commander, Kexron said privately, what do we report to the Empire? Velthar thought about the question as they walked. What could he tell his superiors about these humans? That they looked weak but were stronger than any species he had encountered? That they used no advanced technology but were more effective than his best warriors? That they showed mercy but were more terrifying than any enemy he had faced? Sir, Kexron prompted. We report that humans are ready for contact, Velthar said finally. And we recommend immediate diplomatic status. Because they're advanced enough? No, Velthar said, watching Deho navigate through the trees with unconscious skill. Because they're dangerous enough. When they reached the landing site, the sun was setting behind the mountains. The human team said their goodbyes politely and began walking back toward their vehicle. No weapons, no escort, no apparent concern about being alone with armed aliens. As his ship lifted off from Earth's surface, Velthar composed his report to the Galactic Council. How could he explain what he had learned? That humans had evolved as the perfect pursuit predators, that they could track anything across any terrain, that they showed mercy not from weakness, but from ultimate confidence, that on a world that should have killed them, they had instead become death itself. Patient, persistent, unstoppable death that chose when to strike and when to spare. His final recommendation was simple. Do not engage humans in prolonged conflict. Do not attempt to pursue or track human forces. Do not mistake their restraint for weakness. Repeat. Do not engage. As Earth shrank in his view screen, Velthar understood why the Death World had produced survivors instead of victims, because sometimes the most dangerous predator was the one that didn't need to prove it. The humans called it mercy. But Velthar knew better. They called it a hunt.